Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ben, and I am the author of the book The Shortage, available now on Amazon.com. The Shortage is a thriller, a science fiction novel about a journalist, a young woman, who is investigating a crime wave in New York City. And as she's investigating the crime wave, she comes to find out that vampires are behind it all. So she must do what she can to stop them before it's too late to save New York. I hope that you've gotten a chance to look at the book, and I hope that you've enjoyed it if you have. If not, that's fine. The book is available on Amazon. It's Just go on Amazon and click my name, put in my name in the search box, Ben Adducchio, The Shortage, and you'll find it. It's available in paperback format for $10.99. It's available on ebook for $5.99, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. So it's a great deal, I think, and I think it's a really great Halloween read. I'm going to read from the book in just a few minutes, but first I wanted to thank a few people who helped make the book a reality. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife Jessica, who was the very first person that got to read the book, and she gave me a lot of notes and a lot of great edits about what I should do with the book and where I should take it. And she was very helpful to me the whole way. I want to thank Christy Dahlgren. Christy designed the cover of the book. It was her idea to use New York City, the New York City skyline, as the backdrop for the book. And also, I really loved what she did with the letters. I thought it was very effective and very cool. So Christy, thank you so much for all of your help as well. And also Matt Donovan took the author photo. Matt is a very talented photographer, and he did a great job. And I wanted to thank him too for all of his help putting the book together. I want to remind everyone that you can ask me questions at any time about the shortage. There's a chat box here, a comment box, and I'm going to actually comment right now. You can ask me anything at any time about the book, and I'll answer them after I read from the book. And I'll just quickly write a little note right now. So yeah, at any point you can give me a comment. Tell me what you thought of the book. If you have any questions about being able to get the book or anything like that, let me know. And yeah, right now I'm going to take this time to read from The Shortage. To set up what's happening from the reading, basically the Janine is going to have to find a specific vampire in her search. She's looking for someone who's living in the subway tunnels themselves. So she goes into the subway tunnel to find this particular vampire because she needs his help. She needs his help to stop the crimes from happening in New York. So here we go. Janine stood at the corner of the platform at 96th Street and Broadway. The stench of the subway tunnel filled her nostrils. It smelled of dirt, grime, sweat, and dust. In 2 minutes, a train would arrive heading uptown. As soon as that one was gone, she had 7 minutes to run down the tunnel before the next one arrived. Janine stood next to the ladder leading down to the tracks, looking all around her. There were a few people on the platform, but no one was close to her. Social distancing would actually be to her advantage. Janine put on her mask. She had a reporter's notebook as well as a knife and pepper spray she brought to protect herself. She could see the lights of the train coming toward her. It was about to arrive in the station. She had gone over this scenario in her head all morning. This was her last chance to turn back, to remain standing in front of the looking glass. She thought about Painter and everything he had said to her. She still didn't believe in vampires, but she knew it was a lead that needed to be explored. They were probably just junkies who thought they were vampires. She had read once in the Times about an underground sex community in New York that liked to bite and suck on each other, pretending they were vampires. This was probably something like that. The train whooshed by her as it pulled into the station. It was nearly empty. The virus was keeping people away, and today that was going to work to her advantage. It was illegal to go down on the tracks. She had to try and stay as covert as possible. The doors on the train opened. A homeless man was sitting down in the subway car with a shopping cart full of possessions. It contained mostly empty soda pop cans. Their eyes met. He smiled and lifted his arm, pointing at her. Janine gave him a puzzled glance. He started laughing. Janine realized he was laughing at her mask. The doors closed. Janine gave him the finger and waved at the man. He stopped laughing and gave her the finger back. Janine smirked as the train pulled out of the station. "All right, let's do this," she said. Janine climbed down the ladder and leapt onto the tracks. She could still smell the brakes from the train that had passed. She glanced around. There were markings on the tunnel walls from where the MTA workers had taken readings and did measurements for equipment. She couldn't make out anything else. She could tell that she was surrounded by dirt, grime, and dust. It was disgusting. She clenched her fists. She had to quickly regain her focus. She looked in front of her, into the tunnel going downtown, but couldn't see anything. Good. The next train wasn't in sight yet. She pulled out her cell phone and turned on the flashlight. She started running down the tunnel as hard as she could. Blue neon lights were scattered along the track, and it helped Janine to find her footing in the tunnel. She stopped for a moment to catch her breath. She checked behind her. No one was there. She glanced around for rats. There were none around. She could barely make out the platform at 96th Street. She couldn't tell if anyone noticed her fall down to the tracks. She had to keep going, she kept telling herself. Just keep moving forward. Janine turned to stare again down the tunnel into the darkness. She wasn't far from the abandoned station. She tried to remember everything Painter had told her about it. There wasn't much to remember. She cursed herself for not asking him more about what she could find, what she should expect to see. She started running down the tunnel again. She could see white graffiti sprayed on the walls, some type of symbols. Faster, run faster, she thought. She still couldn't see the train that was supposed to be arriving next. That made her feel a little better. She moved past more graffiti, and suddenly she saw a yellow strip on the wall. It was some type of opening on her left. It was also well lit. She slowed down just before the crevice and tried to creep up to it, but she had been running too fast. A cramp was developing in her knee from running so hard. Damn, she thought, I need to work out more. Janine turned to look down the opening. It was a service tunnel. A brown door looked welded shut right next to the service tunnel entrance. There was puke green graffiti paint sprayed over the walls, along with off-white and red. Electric boxes aligned the wall on the left side. She could see stairs in the distance leading up to the street. Janine gulped. This must have been where Painter followed the figure into the tunnel all those years ago. This must be the place where Painter's source had led him. The floors of the side tunnel weren't as grimy or dusty as the track. In fact, it was lit pretty well, considering this was next to an abandoned station. Janine decided to stop and catch her breath. As she stood there, she started cursing herself again. Why did she come alone? She should have brought someone with her to help in case there was more than one person down here lurking. She had taken protective measures, but would they be enough if she needed it? She closed her eyes. Suddenly, she heard a rumbling coming from outside on the tracks. It must have been the next train arriving at 86th Street. Janine looked to her left out onto the tracks. Should she chance it and run to 91st? She might be seen by the train conductor, or worse, she might be hit by the train. There wasn't much room between the wall of the tunnel and the actual tracks. It would be a tight fit. Janine decided to stay put until the train passed. She took out her reporter's notebook and looked over notes Painter had given her about the people he had met down here. Purple hue to their skin, dressed in black. The leader was very tall and extremely gaunt. She closed her eyes and tried to picture him. She kept thinking back to an old vampire movie her mother liked when she was little. Willem Dafoe was in it, she remembered, and he was playing a vampire disguised as an actor. He looked terrifying, she remembered. Janine quickly searched her pockets for the pepper spray. She found it and clasped onto it. She should be armed before she made her final leg of the journey. The rumbling got louder. The train had left 86th and was chugging along uptown to get to 96. Louder and louder. She could hear the brakes. She could smell the train car pressing itself down onto the old subway tracks. Then she saw it on her left. The silver hue of the train pushing its way past the service tunnel where she was hiding. Fortunately, she couldn't see up into the actual car where people would be sitting. That meant they couldn't see her either. She sighed a sigh of relief as the train passed her by and moved ahead to 96th. As soon as it moved through, Janine looked out toward 91st. She couldn't see anything. She couldn't hear anyone either. She decided to start running again as she left the passageway. She passed more graffiti in red and white as she made her way back down the tunnel. Lights hung near the ceiling, lighting her way. The tunnel seemed to go on forever and ever, so she slowed down. She held her side as she walked forward. Then she saw it. The floor of the tunnel stopped, and dark brown steps were in front of her. She had made it. This was the abandoned station at 91st. She stopped right before she reached the station platform. She could hear a train moving in the distance, coming from 96th and going downtown. That would be on the other side of the tracks. She couldn't hear anything else, and she couldn't see either. She reached into her pocket for her phone to get her flashlight. Her hands were slippery from sweating, and as she brought the phone out of her pocket, it slipped from her hands and fell down near the tracks. "Shit!" she yelled. She quickly froze. Her cover was blown. If someone or something was there, it surely would have heard her by now. Janine went down to the tracks carefully to find her phone. There was no point in trying to hide now. The floor was a sea of black as the station platform engulfed the floor from getting any light. She would have to get on her hands and knees to feel around for her phone. "Oh, God," she muttered to herself. Her greatest fear wasn't getting dirty. It was getting gnawed by rats. They ran amok in the subway tunnels. She couldn't wait forever to find the phone, she kept telling herself. Time was ticking against her. She knelt down, examining the darkened area by the platform. Her phone was somewhere in this abyss. Suddenly, a light flashed on the tracks. It was her phone. She had received a text message that had lit up the screen. She quickly ran over to it. Her screen was cracked, but the phone seemed to be all right. Janine wiped her phone with an old tissue she found in one of her pockets. The text was from Zarga. He wanted to know how things were going on her story about the slain NYPD officer. She just couldn't escape his micromanaging, even in an abandoned subway station. Janine turned her flashlight back on and waved it around the 91st Street platform. It was a small station platform built to handle smaller trains. That's why it wasn't used anymore. It had been out of commission, she read, since the 1950s. There was graffiti all over the walls, neon colors, and letters that looked like they were written in cursive. It was actually very pretty. Janine thought it looked like an art exhibit she had seen a long time ago at the Brooklyn Museum that showcased 1980s graffiti artists in the city. Janine shined her light back on the platform. There were large beams near the stairs blocking her view. She couldn't make out anything else. She pulled out her pepper spray and held it in her left hand as she made her way back to the platform stairs. She held her phone with the flashlight guiding the way with her right hand. She carefully climbed the platform stairs. They were stable. The MTA probably still used this platform for maintenance, she thought. The platform was desolate. There was a white bag leaning next to one of its walls, but nothing else. Steps in one corner that would have led up to the street when the station was in service. She walked over to the walls, studying the graffiti markings. It didn't look like anyone lived here. She stared at the other side of the tracks on the platform going downtown. Then she saw it. Something. A figure was standing on the other side of the tracks on the downtown platform. She was on the wrong side. "Hey!" she yelled at the figure. A train was coming on the express track, leading uptown right in the middle of the subway tracks. It would soon block her view of the other side of the platform. "Hey, wait! Just wait right there!" Janine yelled, but it was too late. The express train was too close to the station, and the sound muffled out the sound of her voice. She tried to wave at the figure, but the train got in the way, sprinting to 96th Street from 72nd. It was too late. The train passed by so loudly that Janine had to cover her ears. She kept staring as best she could at the spot where she saw the figure. When the train had gone, the figure went with it. It had disappeared from the spot. Janine quickly looked to her left, down the tunnel. A train was about to pass 91st Street on the uptown local track. She wanted to make a run for it to try and cross the tracks, but it would be too hard to do that in the darkness. She would have to wait until the train passed. "Son of a bitch," she muttered to herself, slapping her hand against her knee. Janine did that sometimes when she was really frustrated. This was certainly one of those moments. Janine's phone vibrated. She held it to her face. It was Zarga. "Oh, dear God, what is this man's problem?" she said. As she pulled the phone away, the light shone on the figure. It was right in front of her. She screamed. A bystander on a nearby platform may have heard her, but another express train heading the opposite direction muffled out the sound. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my reading from the book. Again, I'm Ben Adducchio. I'm the author of this book, The Shortage, and it's available for purchase now on Amazon.com in both paperback and ebook formats. And I would love to take any questions you may have about this book. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to write some more questions down on the chat box. A couple people had written some questions before the event, and I wanted to make sure that I answered those as well. Someone had asked if I would recommend using Amazon as a book publisher, if I was pleased with how Amazon handled the publishing of this book. And I would say yes. For the most part, I'm very happy with Amazon and what they did. I decided to self-publish the book. If you're a writer and you have a book that you want to have published, I would certainly recommend looking into Amazon and seeing if it would be good for you. You get to keep a certain percentage of royalties from the book sales, and then Amazon takes a cut from that as well. But I would also say that I would ask that you make up a decision, have a decision on how long you'd like to wait before you make a final decision on getting the book published. I decided to publish this book now because it's a book that I feel would go well with Halloween. It's a Halloween read. It's a vampire story. It's a thriller. It's a scary story, and I wanted to have it ready for the Halloween season. But if you don't mind waiting a little bit longer to hear from more publishers and more agents, I would recommend waiting. That could be a good thing as well. And then someone also had asked about when they could audition for the book, if I would write a screenplay or a play about it. Yes, I do think that that is something that I would like to do in the future. It would take some time, but I did write the book with the idea that perhaps a screenplay could be in the works in the future. We'll see. I mean, hopefully at some point we'll do a staged reading of the book. I think that would be a lot of fun, even if we have to do it on Zoom, because I know theaters are not open now, and in New York where I live, theaters are not going to be open for probably another 9 months to 12 months. So it's been a long journey, but I will certainly let you all know if for any actors out there that want to audition for the shortage. I'll let you know. I'll keep all updates here on the page. We have a couple questions in the comment box. Thank you so much. Jessica asks, what genre would you classify the book as? I've seen a few people identify it as horror. Would you agree? Yeah, I think I would agree that the book is a horror novel. I actually think of it more as a thriller than a horror novel, but I know that they are very close together. There are elements of this book that are supernatural. Vampires, of course, don't exist. There's a character in the book that is a witch. Witches may or may not exist. I mean, some people think that witches do exist, but there are supernatural elements that would classify in the horror genre. But I think of the book more as a thriller. It's a book about someone who is racing against time to try to essentially save New York City from ruin. Excuse me. And I think of it more as a thriller than a horror novel. But I welcome however anyone wants to classify the book. I don't mind, honestly. I think that's great. I just want people to talk about the book and enjoy it. Thank you, Ray. Ray gave me a compliment. He's up to chapter 13. Thank you, Ray, for reading the book and for purchasing the book. And I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you, Laura. She said that I'm doing an excellent job and she's waiting for the book to arrive. Thank you, Laura, for ordering it. Chris asks, when you started the book, did you have the entire plot in mind, like the ending, or did the plot develop as the characters developed? Did you have the ending in mind at first? I did not have the entire plot in mind. I had an idea of how I wanted to end the book, but it wasn't set in stone. Ideas came to me as I went along, and I was lucky because there were only a few instances where I got stuck in a corner and I didn't know where to go. For the most part, I knew where I wanted it to go, but I didn't have it set in stone as to, okay, this has got to happen next, and then this character has to come in here. The ending of the book actually changed. Uh, there was going to be another ending that I scrapped because the ending that I used I felt was better. So I adapted, and I think it worked out pretty well. Did the plot develop as the characters developed? The second part of her question, yes, that absolutely happened. And did I have the ending in mind at first? No, I didn't have the ending in mind at first. Fazia asks, where did you get your ideas for the characters? Are they based on real people? That's a great question, Fazia. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for all these wonderful questions. There's one character that is based on a real person. Gregory Painter in the book is based on a man that I've known for several years. He was a very, very nice man. I worked with him. I based that character on him. I based all the good things about that character on him because he is a good person, this man. The characters in general are I imagined. I made them up. I thought about different things that I would really like to see, different types of people that I maybe knew, or types of people that I would meet in New York City. You know, sometimes when you walk down the street in New York City, you see a certain person, you never speak to them, but you see a person and you say to yourself, well, that person looks really interesting, and I bet they'd make a great character for a novel, right? Just the way they walk, or how they're dressed, how they're handling themselves, what they're doing. Or on the subway, you see people on the New York City subway too, all the time that you don't know and you would never talk to, but you say, that's an interesting character. I'd like to meet that person at some point. So I used ideas like that to shape the characters. Jan, thank you for the question. Do you plan on writing more books? Did you enjoy the process? Would you stay with this genre or try different styles? Can't wait to read my copy. Thank you, Jan. Do I plan on writing more books? Yes, at some point I do. I wanted to write a novel for a very, very long time, and I started a novel about 10 years ago that I'd never finished, and it always bothered me that I never finished it. So that was part of the reason why I kept writing this one, The Shortage, and I didn't stop until it was done. Because I didn't want to give up again on another writing project. I would be open to writing a sequel to this book because I think there's more to say about these characters. But I have a few other ideas too that I'd like to explore. So we'll see. I mean, maybe. I certainly hope at some point I can write more books. I did enjoy the process. It is hard to write a book. Very difficult. Someone said that writing a book is a horrible, exhausting experience. This was their quote, and I don't know it exactly, but it was something like, writing a book is a horrible and exhaustive experience, and you would never do it unless you were driven by some demon. And I thought that was an interesting quote. I thought that to some extent that's true. I mean, it is difficult, the process, because it's a very long journey. You have to commit yourself to writing every day, and you write a little bit at a time. Some days are easier than others. Writing, there's a climactic action scene in The Shortage that was very easy to write because for days in advance, I had in my mind what I wanted to do. It's set in a church in the book, and I just had idea A and idea B. I had all of these great things come to mind, and I said, okay, this is how I'm going to write this. And that day of writing was very, very easy. Other days were very hard, and I had to really, dig deep and look at photographs and just do writing exercises to try to figure out where I should go with the story. So I think that perseverance is very important when you're writing. And would I stay with this genre or try different styles? I'd like to try different styles, actually. I'd like to write a comedy. I'd like to write family. I think families, I love, family, and I think family drama is a very interesting genre. Some of these, the most outstanding playwrights wrote about families. People like Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams certainly wrote about families, and I think that would be really interesting to write about as well. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you, Jessica, for asking. She says, I love how you tie in New York City into the book. Are the places you describe real? A lot of the places are real, yeah. The abandoned station that we just heard about in this reading at 91st Street, that's a real place. There is an abandoned station in New York City at 91st Street and Broadway. And you actually, when you're riding the subway train going uptown or downtown on Broadway, between 96th Street and 86th Street, you'll see it from the train. If you look out the windows of the subway train at that point in your ride, you'll see the platform. You'll see the platforms that I'm describing here. That is real. The abandoned station, there are several abandoned stations in the book. Another abandoned station is mentioned at City Hall, which was the very first subway station in New York City. It's now abandoned, and it's a very beautiful, beautiful station. That's also a real place. Some places aren't real. In the book, I did make up some of the places, of course, and but some of the places are definitely real and are used fictitiously. Thank you for the question. And then Laura asks, how long, thank you, Laura, how long did it take you to come up with this idea? How long did it take you to write it? It took me, the idea, let's see, it took a while. The idea came about because I was reading a news story, which I thought was very interesting. The New York Daily News in about mid-April to late April had a story that because restaurants were closed in New York City, because everyone was ordered to shelter in place and restaurants were closed, that rats, New York City rats, were essentially turning on one another and eating one another because they didn't have enough food. That was a real story because rats couldn't go, get food out of the garbage of all the New York City restaurants. They had to literally start eating one another to survive. And I thought that was a really fascinating idea for a novel. So instead of using rats, I thought, well, what about how would other underground societies survive in a virus pandemic like this? And so that's how it eventually became a vampire story, that I decided to use vampires. And the idea would be that how would the vampires be affected by a shelter-in-place order? So that's how it all started. And then how long did it take me to write? It took me about 4 months to write the book. I was writing just about pretty much every day. I would write and then I would edit, reread and edit the book for spelling and grammar and try to make sure that the ideas were good. So it took about 4 months. Thank you. And then Chris, thank you, Mom. I noticed a few personal details hidden in the book, like your birthday, for example. Can you think of any other personal details found there that you would like to share? Yes, I do. My birthday is an important date in this book. Other personal details that I'd like to share. I can't think of any off the top of my head. There is a place in the book it's a very, I won't give away the specific details, but there's a scene in the book when the protagonists have to go to a park to meet the vampire, and there's a place in the park that's a very special place that they have to get to. That is a real place. I've been there, and I remember the first time that I went there, how I thought, how this is a very interesting spot in New York City that I don't think a lot of people know about, and I'd like to use it for an idea for the book. But I'm sorry, I can't give away too many. I don't want to give away too many more details because I don't want to spoil anything in the book. Ray, thank you. Would you write a book about a young actor struggling in the theatrical profession? Yeah, I've done that. I wrote a short play that was similar to that. I think that would be a great idea, Ray. Thank you. I think that'd be a great idea for a great character. And thank you, Fran. Will I do an audio version? She asks. That's something that I'm thinking about. Sorry. That is something that I'm thinking about. A few people have asked if they could listen to the book on Audible. I don't, as of right now, the book is not available in audiobook format, but I I'm looking into that, and that's something that I really want to explore because I think that that's good. I realize not everyone reads print, and not everyone will read an e-reader. So I'm looking into that. Thank you. And then, yes, Fran, thank you for asking this as well. Is the book appropriate for a 12-year-old? This is a great point that I haven't talked about. No, I don't think this book is appropriate for children under the age of 18. If the book was a movie, it would be rated R. There's some four-letter words in it. Some of the scenes are very violent with the vampires, and I don't think that it's appropriate for children. I know that a few people have asked me that question. I would say that when you turn, it's appropriate for someone over the age of 18 to read, but not for children. Thank you, Tyler, for your comment. Again, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll also look right now you can also send me a direct message on Facebook, and I'll answer your questions as well. Thank you so much for all the questions so far. Let's see, I'll wait a few more minutes to see if we have any more questions. But yeah, I hope that everyone has enjoyed this reading of The Shortage. Again, The Shortage is available on Amazon.com now in paperback for $10.99. Ebook is $5.99. And then if you have Amazon Kindle Unlimited, it's free. You can also lend the book. If you have a Kindle and a friend of yours uses Kindle as well, you can lend them the book for up to 2 weeks for free. That's something that I did with Amazon to hopefully get more people, reading the book. Excuse me. Fazia, thank you for your question. Fazia asks, are you going to have a book signing session? Yes, the plan is that I'm going to have 2 signings in 2021. I'm organizing them now. I'm going to be doing one hopefully in Morgantown, West Virginia, and then I'm going to be doing one in New York. And I'm looking for places now where I can organize both of those signings. So if you live in North Central West Virginia and you know a place where I could host a book signing, I'd be more than willing to pay for an event space. But I would love to have a book signing anywhere, and if not Morgantown, Fairmont, or Clarksburg, and then also in New York City for my friends in New York City too. If you know of a place, an event space where I could try to have a signing next year, that would be great. I would absolutely love to be able to do that. So thank you so much for attending the reading today. I'll hold on just a few more minutes in case anyone has questions. But just wait a couple more minutes. Any other questions? Well, thank you again, everyone, for picking up the book, for telling friends about it. If you're not able to purchase the book right now, I totally understand. If you would be so kind to like the Facebook page for The Shortage, that would be great. Or if you tell a friend who you think might enjoy the book, who likes vampires and science fiction and horror and all of this fun stuff, please feel free to share the link with them to the Amazon site, to this Facebook page. Anything would be very helpful and very generous. Again, I want to thank everyone who's gotten a chance to buy the book. I want to thank everybody for being able to come to my live reading and Q&A today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to direct message me on my personal account or on the Shortage account. And yeah, this has been really great. I thank you so much, and I hope you all have a really nice day. Thank you, and have a great one.